What's up, guys? Your boy Benny. Is that panic I smell? This, ladies and gentlemen, is one of my favorite Donald Trump memes ever. Part of the reason why Donald Trump is smelling panic is because, well, there is actual literal panic as Kamala Harris' collapse is officially here. I know you're not supposed to talk about it. Everyone's like, no, don't talk about it. Don't talk about the fact that Donald Trump's up in every single swing state. That there's billions of dollars behind President Trump. That the smartest investment bankers in the world are now saying that Donald Trump is on the path to victory. All of the polls, all of the energy, all of the vibes is now in Donald Trump's direction. Look at this. Look at this. It's not a Taylor Swift concert. It's not an NFL game. It's a Donald Trump rally in Atlanta, Georgia. It's crazy, man. It's crazy. Kamala down in the 30s in her percentage chance of becoming president. Kamala Harris losing so badly that members of her own party who are running for Senate in the must-win state of Michigan are straight up saying, I'm going to not run with Kamala Harris.
What about all of us running?
Democrats in Michigan are running the gauntlet. As the GOP woos blue-collar voters, the war in Gaza splits the Democratic coalition, and the economy drives voter anxiety.
How nervous are you about November?
I'm very nervous.
I'm very, very nervous. Okay, so this is the Democrat. Elisa Slotkin is the Democrat candidate in Michigan for Senate. Here's what she says.
Selves at the top of their tickets.
When the vice president comes, you go.
Slotkin is trying to show some separation despite backing the Biden-Harris agenda.
I'm not immediately saying, rah, rah, I'm on board.
Dude, how bad is it when you're just like dumb, low IQ, dorky, dopey Senate candidates are like, don't come to Michigan. I'm not on board. I'm not on board. It's dragging down all of us. You're such a nightmare. Check this out. Speaking of Michigan, speaking of the Rust Belt, Kamala Harris's campaign has dramatically pulled back local television advertising in Milwaukee, reallocating those resources to Philadelphia. That's not good. Where the campaign is deeply concerned about the turnout and the margins there. NPR admitting that Donald Trump is once again in the driver's seat this presidential election. And this is before Kamala Harris got completely ratioed and nuked on Charlamagne the God's show and then on Fox News. So she goes on Oprah and Charlamagne the God, still gets ratioed, and then Fox News just goes and drops the people's hammer on Kamala Harris. To my Democratic friends, maybe you should consider swapping Kamala Harris for Joe Biden, says J.D. Vance. Kamala Harris wagging her finger and yelling during the Bret Baier interview. Meltdown like we've never seen before. Bret Baier saying, everyone hates you. 80% of the country thinks you're on the wrong track. Kamala Harris says, you know what I'm talking about. Bret Baier says, you actually don't know. I don't know what you're talking about. What are you talking about? Man, it was a nightmare. It's over. I mean, I've never seen a campaign implode like this. And everyone is panicking. You know they're panicking. You can see it here. Barack Obama, Joe Biden at a funeral yesterday. Was it a funeral for Kamala Harris's campaign? They don't look happy, man. They don't look happy. I'll tell you what. I'll tell you who's happy. Don Jr. Don Jr. is so sick of this garbage. He was on responding Jesse Waters' show to Kamala Harris's disaster car wreck of an interview. And I got to tell you, I freaking love Don Jr. The guy doesn't hold back. This is the worst presidential interview in the history of presidential interviews. Here we go. Take it away, Don.
Because they understand that a weak America is good for Iran, a weak America is good for China, a weak America is good for Russia. She's not going to change anything. It's going to be an abject disaster, Jesse.
But why can't she just say, I'm going to change? Why can't she just go out there and say, Joe was a mess. I had lunch with him. He fell asleep in his soup. I didn't want to do what he did with the border. He wanted to blow it up. I was just being a loyal foot soldier. I didn't really like what happened in the Middle East. He spent too much money. I was just there because he tapped me as VP. Why can't she just do that? It's the only thing that will allow her to survive this election. But she's clinging to this failed president like a psychopath.
Because she has no choice. because she's on the record for the last almost 4 years saying that she was the last person in the room. She approved this, she approved that. Joe Biden said the same thing in the interviews over the last 2 weeks. They worked hand in hand.
Yeah.
She was part of every decision. The problem is every decision has made America weaker. Every decision has made America poor. Jesse, we went from a time of prosperity to a time of poverty. We went from a time of peace to a time of war. Ask yourself, this is the age-old question. When were you better off? When do you think your kids had a better chance? And apparently, at least 79% of Americans agree. I don't know what's going on with the other 21%, because if I take my kids to McDonald's and Donald Trump Jr. has sticker shock at McDonald's.
And you think that's bad? Don Jr. back for more, bodies Kamala Harris in what is just a total scorched earth abandonment. Just perfect response here.
Disaster for her. She became unhinged. They're pulling her early because she got angry and couldn't answer even basic questions. She didn't just fail with Bret Baier. She failed on The View, Jesse, last week.
That's right.
Imagine how bad you have to be as a Democrat to go on The View and basically commit political suicide. She doesn't have it. Americans understand that. She'll tell you whatever you need to hear to get that vote, but she is the daughter of a Marxist professor. She is a radical San Francisco liberal. She has been in charge for 3.5 years because she's not just a vice president. She's a vice president to the most absentee president in the history of the United States, someone who has spent over 40% of his time on the beach in Delaware, and, not to mention the dementia. She could have done any one of these things over the last 3.5 years, yet she did none of them. Why wait? She going to wait till day one on January 20th? Americans are suffering. Inflation is killing us. Wars are breaking out all over the world. Iran is endorsing her. Vladimir Putin is endorsing her because they understand that a weak America is good for Iran. A weak America is good for China. A weak America is good for Russia.
And to lock it all down, Vivek with the thoughtful, less of a flamethrower, more like Vivek style takedown of Kamala Harris and the stupidity of her policy position.
So, Vivek, she's asked about the sex change operations. She wants to give them to prisoners. That's just crazy. And illegals in detention. And she says, it's Donald Trump. Donald Trump. What is that?
Well, I think she discovered a new line tonight, Jesse. She says, I will follow the law. So when you don't want to answer a question about what the policy agenda is, you just say, I will follow the law. As if, as the president of the United States, you're not actually setting the agenda that goes through Congress in the first place. So do I favor a tax on unrealized capital gains? Well, the next question she's going to get is, I will follow the law. It's the new rote response. It's the second part of that exchange that I thought was more interesting relating to the Iran piece, where she made a statement that I think is, in a world with China, quite a statement to make, to say that Iran is the single biggest threat to the United States right now vis-a-vis China. But it made me take a step back and think about, when I think about the biggest threat to the national security of the U.S., it's actually a weak president in the White House. And that's what we saw on display in that interview. I think Brett did an outstanding job. It surprised me that Kamala Harris actually sat for that interview. And what that signals to me is that they're as worried as they probably should be. When you're going down, you want high volatility outcomes. That was a potentially high volatility interview. It didn't go well for her. And It signals to me increasing desperation in their camp. So no complacency on our side. I think that's important.
Sure.
But I think this trajectory is heading in a potentially very good direction.
I mean, these aren't hard questions. Who is the biggest threat? I mean, China is obviously a huge threat in the Pacific. They have nuclear weapons. The Russians have nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
They're all pointed at us. We're in proxy wars with the Russians. Iran? This is a tiny country with no nukes. I don't know what she's talking about. You mentioned that things are looking okay on the ground for Donald Trump. What can you share with us quickly?
So, look, I've gone to Pennsylvania. I joined him in a couple of the rallies last week. I'm headed to Penn State tomorrow, targeting a lot of younger voters as well. You get a sixth sense from being on the ground where we're seeing an energy level that at least I have not seen in my lifetime. Miles, tens of miles, people just lining up. And a lot of those low propensity voters, I think, are what could move this election in a really big way, Jesse. People who have not been reliable voters in the past, those are the people that are disproportionately breaking actually for Donald Trump. So we could be in for a surprise where historically in 2016, you saw Donald Trump trailing the Senate candidates. Now you're actually seeing the opposite. For Republican Senate candidates, Donald Trump's overperforming them. This could set up for a landslide unifying possibility for the country.
He said the L word.
Yeah, and I'm rooting for it.
Okay, he said the L word. And he hasn't seen energy like this in his lifetime, and he's 25.
Yeah.
Vivek Ramaswamy,
I'll take the compliment,
good
man.
to see you.
What's that panic I smell? Make the meme real. Make the meme real. Make libs cry again. So close. It's your boy Benny. Like, share, and subscribe. See you in November.